Alright. I think this is the first, stream I've ever done on just normal 1.12 Tardis mod. But here we are. So, today we're going to be working on making the ARS tree functional. Well, the eggs at least. Each egg will be its own independent machine, basically. And I think what we're going to, just for now, I'm probably going to make it if you right-click on a, if you right-click with an egg on the console, it'll give you an ARS egg for right now, because don't really know what else to put it for right now. Alright, so this spawns our tile entity already, so what we need to do is create this. So first off, what we'll have is a, one second. Oh, he's gone. Anyway, first thing we'll need is a list of all items that this tree can spawn. So we'll create that. Probably item stack. A list of stacks that this can spawn, rather, because that allows us to use, give different parameters for, like, the size of the stack, and, what? Huh. Anywho. So, sorry, just reading chat there. So first off, we'll need a GUI for it. It seems I've already started that. We don't want any of these parameters because that's, well, maybe this one. This is a weird style I had before. It's awful, and I'm glad I don't do it anymore. Basically. Tile entity Tardis. We'll need to know from what Tardis it needs to get its energy, because that's how we will spawn it. Who's this random person? Sorry. I have to take care of a person in chat. Anywho. So, we'll need a variable, or a field, that holds the Tardis instance. At least on the client side, just for reference to tell the server what we want to do to it. So, set that. There we go. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure where this GUI came from. Let's see what it's got in it. GUI, ARS. Yeah, no, he's gone, don't worry. So, wait for paint.net to show up. Ah! I see, that's the original version of the room spawning idea, where you could actually click and like paint with rooms. That's an old one. We're probably just going to use the normal monitor GUI for this, because that's what we've done with pretty much everything else. Why not? So we'll just call monitor GUI GUI monitor, that is. Draw. Yeah, draw monitor background. This, the width, and the height. We actually don't need that, but that's alright. Go to this, we'll clear the buttons like this says. Each button will be a just a representation of the item stack. Each block you get will give you a each block that you get will give you a stack when you right click it. I think I'll probably make it use 0.5% or something in there for per stack you generate. So yeah. So first off, we'll need to go to the block. We will override onBlock activated, which allows us to change something that happens. And if the world is if we're on the client side, then we'll want to call a site only function that opens up the GUI. So site only site.client. So that calls the Minecraft, it gets the Minecraft instance, and it tells it to start displaying a GUI screen, which will be a new GUI ARS. And that passes in a Tardis argument. So we know which one to pull the energy from. So then we call this .openGUI in here. Well, that's not exactly true. First we need to get the Tardis tile entity. So tile entity TE worldIn.get tile entity. And this helper function gets the console position of the Tardis that this block is currently in. So if the tile entity exists and it is a tile entity Tardis, we want to cast it to a Tardis and then give it to the GUI to handle. So this should spawn this GUI now. It should draw the monitor background, and this function here will add all the buttons. So we have elements here. There is a button recipe, I believe it's called. Yes. A button recipe that gets all the It basically renders the GUI stack as a button. So we want to make a starting position for these. And for every item stack that exists in our registry for the ARS tree, tile entity egg is what I called it. We will add this to the GUI. Go away. So this add button. Of course I'm excited for endgame. Have to wait a few days, or till tomorrow actually. Well, not tomorrow, the next day. 2 days for it to come out, so there's that. But, yeah. So yeah, that just takes the... What else do you need? Shoot. That's button recipe. I've changed around my naming scheme a little bit in 1.13, so it's a little bit odd going back to this. So, yeah, I know y'all did. We need an ID as well, so we'll need to create an ID variable. Int ID equals 0. So we want to use ID, and after we use it, we want to increment it by 1, so the ID's 1 bigger the next time. So, this... We'll make this be the middle of the screen for the moment, and we can base it off, well, we'll base it off being the middle of the screen, and we'll change it around later. So let's see what we got. Well, first off, we need to register that, so let's make a registry function. So like public static so that'll register an item stack to this GUI. So we're going to probably go into the main class for now. Phil hates that, but that's alright. And we're going to go ahead and register a new stack. So let's figure out a button that we want in here. So we'll go blocks. We'll go and ban this user. In chat, 1 second. I actually don't know how to do anything but the timeout for right now. And then we'll finish registering this. So for now, we'll just make it spawn hellbent glass for now. We'll make it spawn a stack of it. Is that metadata or stack? Yeah, this is stack. Okay. So now that should render in the GUI, and we'll figure out where we want to put it later. So we're having issues here. Ah, yeah, that's old. It's not even registered anywhere. Or it is. No, it's not. So let's see what we got in game so far. It was that Jack person. Actually, I should probably figure out how to ban people permanently. Like, remove doesn't do anything but remove their comments, so like, not sure on that. Anyhow, so are y'all excited for the 1.13 and 14 update then? They said 1.14 shouldn't take too long to come out with, so that's helpful. Because if it doesn't take Forge very long, then it won't take us very long either, because that means there's not much that has to be changed either way. It stays pretty much the same. So we could get a 1.14 update maybe the same week that 1.14 Forge comes out. It just depends on circumstances, like whether or not how done the 1.13 version is. If it's playable, then I'll port. If it's not, I'll make it playable first, and then I'll port it. But 1.13 is coming along really well. We have interiors, we have flight, we have console models spawning, we have exterior models, we have the changing system. It's coming along pretty well. Shouldn't take too long to get at least the first version, a beta version, out and playable. So that'll be cool. So let's see what happens when we right-click this. The screen comes up, but it doesn't render the doesn't seem to render the item stacks. So that's not nice. Let's see. Okay. It's really weird. Definitely registering the thing. So let's see what happens if we put a breakpoint where it creates the GUI here, and we'll see if we can't figure out if it's even being called. Because if it's empty, yes, it is being called. The item stack we're trying to render does exist, but it's empty. Oh, I know why it's empty. Because that's the pre-initialization phase. The item doesn't exist just yet. So if we do a new item stack here, and we hard code in like this sphere right now. Oh. Then that should work, right? Oh. We gotta remove this first. Then that should work. Yeah. So that works. Okay. So what we're needing to do is to move this to a later function, just about. I really wonder why that happens. Even if it's not registered, it shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. It's fixed in 1.13. I don't know if that's because of something I've done. I do differently now, or if it's just something weird with this, but I guess it's not really an issue if it's fixed. I love that this isn't an issue. They have like resource locations to define a dimension. It does get the dimension API is super screwy in 1.13 though. Super bad. Oh. There we go. That's how you ban someone. Ah, that's nice. Good to figure out. Oops, that's not what I was That's not something I meant to go to. Alright, testing time, round 2. So... oh yeah, we need to stop hard coding that. I forgot about that. That's not gonna work too well. So stack. Here we go. Huh, well it seems it's still being hard-coded for some reason. We're probably gonna have to restart it. Well, while we have it started, let's remove some of these useless variables here. There's no use in having them if they're just going to take up space. And we'll go to the button recipe. We'll make it where we'll add an iAction item, which is a class I created to make it where it's a functional interface, so you can make buttons do something, because there's no basic listener class like on most things in Java. So I normally call it add action. That's iAction. Then we need a do action function. Public void and if action isn't null, then call action. Alright, so that sets up your basic button press ability. Oh no, he's gone permanently. I figured out how to get rid of him. So we need to figure out how many rows and columns we want on this. Oh, congrats, Outcast. If you spoil it, I'll ban you forever. I'm considering adding IP banning to the Reaper, so the Reaper automatically logs people who were banned. It logs their IPs, and then if they ever try to join with the same IP, it bans them again, forever. So because Discord's the only one who can implement IP banning, this is my way to get around that. Actually, I might go ahead and do that. I might add it on screen. I might add it on stream. Who knows? If I have time. If we have time. That being said, though, I did make my own program to get rid of these the console spam we have here. So that's helpful. I keep doing that, and I should stop. So we'll actually work on like getting rid of these errors too, probably, because they should be super easy. Because that's what I did. Well, yeah, that's a good point, 50. But like, there isn't much I can do to stop that except. I mean, probably is actually. Okay, sweet. So that works. It's not hard coded anymore. So the next thing we want to do is every time we add a button. Shit. No, that works. We should add an action and make that action spawn the stack, or actually send a message to the server to spawn the stack. So first off, why don't we play around with the starting GUI screens for positions first. Then we'll work on getting it to actually work. I think that looks about good. Minus 50 maybe? Yep, so I think that's a good starting point. I think let's quickly do something else just for testing. And just add like 20 of the same stack for now. Int I equals 0. So, well, let's get rid of this because this is probably, that's really easy to do. So we'll just create a new stack every time. And it'll just spawn acacia fences. Nope, no, that's not good. There we go. So this should spawn a bunch of acacia fences in the thing. That is one acacia fence and not a bunch. That's because we haven't. So this we'll go ahead and add we'll go ahead and add the ID, but the remainder of probably 5 rows sounds about right, times 18, because that's about the size of a model. So yeah, that looks about right to me. Of course, more than 5 rows, so maybe 15 rows? Is that about right? That's way too many rows. So I'm gonna go with 11 rows. Looks like it'd probably be 11 rows. Looks about right to me. And then plus ID divided by 11 for the what is that, Corgi? Times 18. Yeah, and that, sweet. That's the GUI finished then. So now all we have to do is get rid of acacia fence here, replace all this back with the item stack spawning thing, and that should have us finished here. So now all we'll have to do is make it functional first off, pretty important, and then the next thing we'll have to do is to start registering all the blocks we want to be added. What do you mean, how would we manage the mod in the future, though? We need to run to our network registry and register a new packet that spawns. Wait, I have a spawn item class that goes to the server. Read item stack. You know, this should work. We can reuse this class. That's sweet. Don't have to make another one. Network handler? Yeah. Network handler. Network. Send to server a new message spawn item with, I think it just takes the stack argument. Yep. So that should make that it should be functional. I don't know if it'll be functional right now. We'll probably have to redo this. Let's copy this. What is the name of that of the block here? Tardis top wardrobe? Yeah. Yeah. And then the name of the item here? Models block. T the opposite. Okay. So now we can run the program that I created earlier today, gen variants, to create libraries, documents, GitHub. Tardis mod. This is the pain. This is the hard part of it, is that. So, that should have generated the wardrobe block state, and we shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. And the fact that it's thinking about this is probably a good thing. I'm still not sure what you mean by managing stuff. Manage it how? Like, Eclipse, why are you doing this to me? Anywho, so testing round 3. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Corey. I mean, yeah. Oh, hello. Good to have you back. No, it isn't. Go away, actually. Fuck off. Yeah, he's dead. And he's dead, so that's alright. Wait, doesn't he exist on the server too? Like, I'm pretty sure he does. That's roles, that's not what I was looking for. Let me see if we can find him on the server as well. Nope, I guess not. 759 members though, that's kinda cool. I believe it's in the description of the stream, in fact, Corgi. Alright, so let's see if this worked. Oh yeah. We forgot to actually tell it to do stuff. So we'll have to close that out again. But we'll have to override, damn it. We go ahead and override action performed. And, we'll go ahead and call super, so that's the noise and shit. So if this button is an instance of the button we just used over here, the, button recipe, then we'll firstly cast it to that button recipe, of course, and then we'll call do action. So that should spawn the stuff. Should in fact probably close this out, I imagine. So Minecraft, get the instance of Minecraft, tell it to display a GUI, but we'll tell it to display nothing as its GUI. No. Before we do this, we should probably make it to where this GUI does not pause the game either, because I don't see any reason for it to pause the game, really. Return false. So this should be the object of the stream, essentially accomplished. So that all that it takes is registering each item to the ARS registry that we made in the tile entity. Well, actually we will have to make a packet for this, because we will need to check that Tardis, make sure it has enough power, and if it does have enough power, then take the power and spawn it back. So I think it looks here like we probably use block base as a registry point, and then like blacklist what we don't need. So in block base we'll do tile entity egg register a new item stack instance with this as its base item, and a stack for the item size. So that should register a whole bunch of blocks to our GUI right now. Well, not right now, after we restart the game again. But first we want to be sure it actually works, which it should. If you'll notice, when we would right click it, the arm would stop swinging mid-swing because the game was paused. So that'll be an easy way to tell if it's paused or not. And it is not, because it finished its swing. And so we should be able to click this, it should close and give us a stack of this. And it did. So that's the base system completed now. So sweet. We'll clear out that. We'll go back to the registry handler, or the network handler rather. We'll make a new packet. Register message. Handler class, the message class, the ID, which will just be ID++, and the side that receives the thing, so side.server. So this will give us a new packet to use. So we'll need to create this class in the packets folder. It'll need to implement an iMessage class to tell Forge that it's a packet. It will need the base methods and a default constructor. In addition to a default constructor, it'll also need to know what Tardis we're trying to pull this power from. So tile entity Tardis. No. We'll just need the position, because that's how we define a Tardis, if you recall. A lot of you have issues with that because it means you can't move it. But if you have a legitimate idea of how else we could store what instance of a Tardis is what persistently, honestly, I'm all ears. I'd be willing to hear people out on this. Because I thought of like generating a new UUID and binding it per console and giving it to an item when it drops, but it just leaves too And in fact, that could work, but it just leaves too much to chance, really. Anywho, that's probably not a talk for right now. So, we'll just initialize that. This gets it back from the network byte stream. So, read long, and over here we'll write it to bytes. So, actually, I can spell. It's all right. Write long, position too long. So that does that. We'll also need a handler class to tell it what we should do. Well, like, if I could do it by UUID, but like, to do that, that means I'd have, you don't understand that means I'd have to load every single, like, block position is how it gets a tile entity. If I do it that way, it'll have to load every single chunk in that dimension, which is infinite. So there's, like, that would kill any server. That would kill anything, because it has to. I don't see a way that could work. Oh, it needs to be parameterized? Parameterized? One day. I'll pronounce it one day, I swear to God. Yeah. Even if it's limited to, even if we limit it to just a certain amount of chunks that the Tardis could, you know, Outcast, like, technically, but then that leaves having multiple, that leaves the chance of having multiple Tardises, which are all technically functional in one space, and it then makes it hard to keep track of that. So, like, I mean, technically it could probably listen for when it's broken and then edit the map itself, so you don't need a command. Basically, I hate commands. If you have to resort to making a command for a mod, and it's not just a basic command only admin mod. If it's a mod like this where users interact with it, normal users interact with it, and you make commands a necessity, you're just a fucking failure. I mean, I don't like that personally. That's not my modding style. Which is why I dislike the commands currently, and I don't dislike them, but they're not moving over to 1.13. If you got used to the Tardis commands, they're not going to exist. Well, Tardis grow will probably exist, but that'll probably be the only command we have. And that's basically... I think this is the first time I've told anyone about that, so congrats, you'll have classified knowledge. Yay, you're special now. Anywho, so. Shit. So when this receives this message, what it'll do is basically find the tile entity first. Tile entity T equals, we'll need a world first. World server. ctx dot server handler player get server world, then a tile entity in that world, and the block state we're looking at is the position of the Tardis we've given it. So if tile entity is a Tardis entity, Tardis tile entity rather, then cast it to a new variable. If the Tardis fuel is greater than 0. That's 1%, so 0.05, then I need a set fuel function. If I was going to do that outcast, I'd just make it where if you mined the Tardis, it updated the map, and if you placed it, it updated the map and told it where it was. And that would work. That could theoretically work. But we'd have issues like with the interior spacing. No, I don't think that can really work. Yeah, I don't think that can really work. So we'll set the fuel here to we'll set the fuel to the what the fuel is, minus 0.05, minus 0.5%, 0.5%'s fuel. And then we will we'll go to the player. We'll go to the play. Well, what we'll do is we'll use inventory helper, and we'll we'll spawn an item stack in the world server. Shit, we'll need a player. Let's see, player MP. Right, so we'll get the player here in a variable, and then we'll set the entity item's position to that of the player's feet, basically. This is how Minecraft drops things. They just set it with like the pickup time of 0. That way, if we forgot to send an item stack over. Alright, we'll have to send an item stack too. Anyway, that way if your inventory is full, it won't just delete the item, because that's the default. Is it just makes the item disappear. And that's not what most people want, really, is to just have their items disappear. So they just spawn an entity with a pickup time of 0 directly at the player's feet. And that's what we're going to be doing. So, that goes there. Message stack, and now we'll have to figure out a way to write this. So this dot stack equals item stack. Is there a way to read it directly like that? I feel like, I don't know if this is 1.13 or 1.12, but there should be a way to like initialize it with like a MBT tag as the yeah, you can. Sweet. So what we'll do here is it's byte buff utils yeah, read tag buffer. So we go back to byte buff utils, and we will read an item stack. Oh, you can straight up read an item stack. Sweet. That makes things a lot easier. Oh, this is read item stack actually. So buffer. Now we can read the item stack. So this will make us write the item stack. Sweet. So that's what? So that's the packet done. This is the packet registered. Now all we have to do is tell it to send the packet. So message ARS spawn. We'll need the Tardis.get get position and then the stack. So yeah, I thought a lot. I've thought a lot about the the whole shit. I've thought a lot about the whole ability to like move the Tardis, but there's a decent way I can possibly think of. And if I could, I'm not like that would work if they were in their own dimension. If every Tardis was its own dimension, then that's a completely feasible thing. Because you can just update the position map and you don't have to worry about spacing because it's infinite. It would be really, really easy if you did it their own dimension. Unfortunately, that in itself is not easy to implement. It's not nice on servers. It's not nice on the file structure, and it's not nice on performance. So while it fixes a lot of problems, it introduces a lot of more classic problems to the game itself. So I think that'll be staying relatively how it is, honestly. If I could think of a decent way, I'd be all for it, but I can't. So, and I think I'm going here in just a bit, if everything's working correctly and we're done with this screen here, I'm going to make it where people can write JSONs to register their own, like mod pack creators can register their own list of things this tree can give you. Sweet. That's weird. I mean, it works. Is it taking down the... Okay, so the Archon banks are 95%. Let's take one. They're 94 now. We should be able to take another and make them still be 94. They are, and another should make them 93. And it does. Sweet. So that's... Well, we do need to test what happens if you use all of them. Honestly, this will take forever, actually, now that I think about it. Since it's a stack, maybe should we make it do 1%, or should we leave it? What do y'all think? 1% or 0.5% still? More importantly, why is it going down there? Like, that's not based on screen width, is it? Surely not. Hopefully not. No, it's not. So it is absolute where it decides to put this. So that's a good thing, at least. That's not right. Leave it, y'all think? Okay, we'll leave it. It's a lot of resources you can generate, but like the Tardis, that's just something it does, really. I can deal with the Tardis being a little bit cheaty. It's it's the Tardis. not always supposed to be exactly. Huh. That's weird. It really shouldn't be changing height. I don't set height anywhere, do I? Surely not. I don't. So I don't understand why that's a thing that's happening, but it is. We had this set up right, so I don't know where this is coming from. Hopefully it doesn't do that anymore. And that's where this is where it stays. Let's do about 40. That seems about right to me. So this works. This feature complete. Congrats. Let's be nice to all the poor server owners, mod pack owners out there, and let them make their own. So in the pre-init folder right here, should it be pre-init? Yeah, it should. It should be pre-init. So file helper. Do we have a file helper class, or I'm about to create this? I'm about to create it. File helper.read or write. Read or write ARS. And what we'll need from here is the file, the file directory to read this from, which should be the configuration folder to me. So mod configuration directory, and we will create this in method. Oh, apparently someone did make this one. I don't know if it's Frill or Lotux, but luckily it's already created for us, so that takes a little bit off. We will just call this deer, because I'm lazy as fuck and don't want to type that. So new file, directory equals new file, which is directory.getPath plus file separator. So that tells, that gets the, like, if it's a slash or double backslashes, it depends on the system. So this makes it where I'm not hard coding anything, and it doesn't break if you try to use this on Linux or Mac or PC. It just works, as someone said. So we could, and then I want to no, this is where we'll keep it. So Tardis underscore ARS that's .json. So we're gonna have to actually put this in a try function, try block, IO exception. There we go, IO exception. Oh, well, it will be. And then if if this configuration file does not exist, then we'll go ahead and write it, and if it does, we won't touch it. So else, this is how you write them. So we'll go directory dot, no, this is if it does exist. So we want this to be if it does exist, and this if it doesn't. So directory, create new file. We'll need a JSON writer for this one object, so we'll call that writer, and we get that from a new JSON builder. Set pretty printing, so it's not all one line. Then we'll go ahead and create that and get a file writer from it, or a JSON writer, and we need to give it a file writer for it to figure out what file to write this to. So this file we just created. We'll need to close it so the stream isn't just open, leaking out all our resources, and then we'll need to. How we want to structure this is we want it to be an array of registry names for each of the items we want to register to the ARS tree. So this is where we stop here. We want one thing in here. I always like to put one thing in here as a guide, just so people know exactly what it is what goes here. So I think we just put value here. I haven't really done arrays. I think we just put value here, and then we put, like, we'll do Tardis. What's a block? Or we need to save this. What's a block we haven't done yet? We need to go to common blocks. Let's just grab a block. Toyota hexagon 1. We haven't done that yet. So we'll leave this in here as like a base. That way people have some idea of how to do this. So for this one, if the file already exists, then we'll need a JSON reader. So it's pretty much the same process. Get a new JSON builder. We don't need pretty printing because we're not writing anything. So just create the JSON object and then get a new reader here. Again, that's a new file reader. The file that we want to read is that one that we just specified. Again, we want to close the stream so as to avoid memory leaks. We want to parse the fact that the array begins and that the array ends. We want to, while there's a next value in here, we want to read that value. So we want to I forget how you do this. Oh, I forget how you You know, I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how we would go about grabbing an item from a registry class. I've done it before, I'm certain. No, that's not how you do it. You know? Oh, get by name or ID. Sweet. Sweet. So this is what we're looking for. So If it has a next value, then reader dot next string, and this should create it the first time we spawn this in the configuration directory. Actually, not in the configuration directory, just in the Minecraft directory. So we want this to be in config /tard. Not slash. We don't know if we're using this on Windows, so file dot separator character. There we go. Actually, I think file does that already. I'm pretty sure file does that already. But we've done it now, so who cares? Alright, so we'll see if it spawns in this config folder, where the other configs, where Forge automatically puts config classes. We have to wait for, of course, Minecraft to show up, it to run this, have you. But it should show up any point now. It'll be a little bit, but any point, basically. Yeah, it's still on the construction phase. The pre-init, it's right at our pre-init, so, it's done with our pre-init, so technically it should have already created that. Config there, and it hasn't. I probably did need to leave this, at least for testing. That way we'd know why this is happening. If file exists, read it. Else, create new file, then write it. Looks about right to me. Let's refresh this just to be sure it's not hiding in there. It's not, so let's try this again with the error catching enabled and see why that this doesn't happen. Config. I didn't misspell it. I always gotta check. Let's go ahead and put some of these debugger things right here. That way it'll stop us and tell us what's going on with it. Alright, so it hit that. File. Yeah, it looks about right to me. Wait a minute. Why doesn't it have the rest of the... Where's the rest of the name there? Oh, there it is. Alright, so it parsed all the way. That looks right to me. But it isn't. The system cannot find the path specified. That's odd. Because config is the only thing it could be messing up, and it should be running right in here. No, this is already the config folder, so I'm looking for config, so this should be correct. Sorry about that. So that should be what we're looking for. Alright, now we just wait for the pre-initial phase to finish, and this should print out our thing, and then we'll test. We'll like ask it to give us a stack of like fucking apples and sticks, just to make sure that the system's working. Should be. Of course, in programming, should be is very rarely whether or not something is something. Yeah, so that looks right to me now. I'm not getting an error, so that's good. It did create it, so that's doubly good. So let's see what it created it with. Should be like a 3-line JSON file. We'll see. And it is. And yes, it generated the file correctly. So that's nice. That's exactly what I was looking for. So now we'll close this because we don't care to see it open all the way. We'll add our own things like like Minecraft apple. And now we'll see if like an apple shows up alongside the hexagon. And if it does, we're done here. There's nothing else to do really. That's basically all we set out to do finished, which is great. And it got past the pre-initialization phase, and it did not overwrite, it did not overwrite our configuration file, so that's a good sign that everything's working. So, sweet. Yeah, and we're past the pre-init phase, so if it was going to get overwritten, that's where it happened. Actually, I realized I've never initialized an item from a JSON object like that. You really like the idea of a nuke, don't you? I actually do kind of want to add like the Cyberman bomb that blows up a planet. Crap, like I kind of want to. I really, really shouldn't, but also I really want to. Anyway. Huh. Huh. There seems to be no... Oh, we just create the item. We don't ever add it. I'm an idiot. Tile entity egg dot register a new item stack with this item we've just pulled out here. So new item stack, this item, and a stack of that. That should be about right. Oh, we need more. There we go. Now, this should work, hopefully. Maybe not, but hopefully. Ready for bed. 10 o'clock where I'm at, which normally isn't that late, but been keeping late hours, so not doing all that hot. No, I've actually thought about like making a random chance that a spaceship, like a regular old spaceship, crashes near you and you can fix it up. Like I plan to make like there to be like huge spaceships in space, the space dimension, for like Cybermen and what have you. And I plan that you can kill them all, loot the it's a dungeon thing, except that you can then proceed to fly that dungeon to other planets and take landing crafts from that spaceship to another planet when you get there. So kind of like the Tardis, only it can only go to planets and it's extremely slow in comparison. And yes, apples work. So sweet. That's really just the system done then. We have to add the name for it so it doesn't look weird. But like, from what I can see, that is the system completed. So it's called tile.tardis. What was that? Tree egg. Dot name equals ARS Tree egg. Save that, close that, F3T. When this reloads the assets, we'll see if that name went, and if it did, we'll probably just go ahead and release 0.1C today. I might add. I don't think I'll add companions that have anything to do with like the original companions, because that's just asking for hurt. Really, people are gonna be like, no, it's not like this one was, and I hate it, and you did it wrong. I can just. I don't want to deal with that. It would be fun, but like, people would kill me. So probably not gonna happen. Anywho, tile.tardis.treeegg.name. Tile.tardis.treeegg.name. Tardis treeegg.name. I don't see why that isn't working. Anyway, let's clear out another block state issue here, because I've added that fucking program I made. Why not? It is a is it a facing or is it not a facing? I think it's not a facing, so we'll just generate that just like that. So we'll go up one folder, we'll go to that's not what we're looking for, so we'll go to Spectre, libraries, documents, there we go, GitHub, Tardis mod, source, main, Java, net, Tardis mod. Shit, we didn't want any of that. We wanted resources. Resources, assets, Tardis, block states. Save. So we'll restart this. We'll see if the naming then works. Hopefully it does. If it does, then I think honestly I'll just go ahead and release, because like we have a lot of stuff in this. Like the bigger on the inside's a lot better. A lot of stuff that's ready to go. and has needed to be at it for quite some time, really. And another thing about the companions, like, if I added one, I'd have to add all of them, because every single companion is someone's favorite companion, as asinine as that might be. So I'd get like 50 PMs being like, why'd you leave out my favorite companion? Ah! And that's not fun. And yes, I could just blacklist my PMs, but I like hearing from people who don't do that. So I don't. So, deal with it. I don't know what this person in the chat's saying, so I'm just going to assume it's positive and leave him. Might not be, but I will. Huh. Seems to be clickable from quite some way away, even though it doesn't give you anything. So it's a little weird. I need to make sure everything's being cleared correctly then. Let's test that. Well, let's just test. See, the name's right. So, do we have that that exterior added? Like, yeah, we do. The wardrobe exterior, y'all probably don't know this. It is for 1.12.2. That's where it first existed. So that's kind of cool, or not, depending on how you feel about it, I guess. Figure on the inside has issues. I hope 1.13 doesn't have those issues. But yeah, a lot of server fixes, a lot of bug fixes, a lot of lighting fixes. I mean, look at that. I mean, the stairs are wrong. The stairs are wrong, but look at that transition. And again, the stairs are wrong, but transition's pretty good. Lighting's weird, I'll edit that. But like, this is great. So, look for that update coming out in probably like 10 or so minutes. See y'all later.